fastest, easiest way to buy crypto. If you're just getting into Bitcoin, it's the perfect place to start. Hey guys, and welcome back to the Layah Heilpern show powered by Icon Plus. So as always, some quick news for you. So Bloomberg have said South Korea is the world's leading innovative economy, with Icon positioning itself as the gateway for financial institutions, DeFi, Web3, and DID solutions. Now, this show is sponsored by BlockFi, so a quick shout out to them. I use them to earn up to 8.6% interest on my USDC, and you can actually get up to $250 when you sign up with them. So I've left the link for you in the description and in the comments. And before we bring on my guests, a quick shout out to CoinFlip. So you can actually get 10% off your transactions with them with a discount code. So I will leave that rolling somewhere in the bottom. Now, before I bring on my really brilliant guest today, who I'm sure you guys probably know who they are already, if you are watching on YouTube, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe so you never miss any of these amazing guests. Now, joining me today are the names behind the social network, the Bitcoin billionaires, and of course, the guys behind the crypto exchange, Gemini. It is, of course, Tyler and Cameron. How are you doing, guys?
Hey, doing great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Nice to see you, Cameron.
Nice to see you too.
All right, so guys, firstly, thank you so much for coming on. I'm super excited to jump straight in because there's been some huge news this week. You guys are partnering with Ben Mesrick again, which is really exciting, but this time you guys are executive producers of the Antisocial network. So talk to us. How did this come about? What is it about? Tyler, do you want to go for it first?
Sure. We first met Ben about a decade ago when he wrote The Accidental Billionaires, which became the movie The Social Network. And then we reconnected a couple years ago because he wanted to write a book about Bitcoin, which became Bitcoin Billionaires, which were portrayed in our early journey in Bitcoin. And then recently, with the Wall Street Bets GameStop drama of last week, he wrote a treatment that MGM picked up this weekend, and we're going to executive produce. So that's our history with Ben.
So what's this going to look like, Cameron? We'll come to you. What's this going to look like, right? So for those that don't really know what happened with GameStop, explain Anti-Social Network, because that's a bit of a spin-off from the Social Network.
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. Basically, a bunch of people on the Wall Street Bets subreddit started buying GameStop, which was a very heavily shorted stock. I think over like 150% more than the actual amount of shares or float. So a few hedge funds were trying to drive this company into the ground, and a bunch of these individual traders, which refer to themselves as degens and other things, other terms or whatever, basically banded together and ran over this hedge fund. And I think the hedge fund lost something like $4 or $5 billion. And it was sort of this triumphant moment where individuals sort of stuck it to the institutions. And almost always historically, it's been sort of the other way around. And it was a really interesting moment. And that's kind of how it all got started. And I think the Wall Street Bets forum in Reddit has grown by something like 6 million users. And a lot of these individuals who trade and go to GameStop and believe in the company, but also kind of believe that the system in Wall Street is broken and rigged against them. So a lot of this is really sort of almost out of protest against the system and things like that. So that's sort of the general gist of what's been going on.
But the whole against the system. So I have quite an interesting way of looking at this. Do you think this is something which is predominantly kind of an idea within this online crypto community? Because I know I saw you guys on CNBC and you were sort of putting forward this idea. And I think particularly for Tyler, it didn't go down so well.
Yeah, well, last week, the Robinhood app mysteriously halted the buying of certain tickers of GameStop and AMC, but allowed you to continue to short them. And so people sort of saw that centralized power saying, sort of deplatforming you and saying, hey, you can't trade these now. You can only sell them. You can't buy them. So that's where a lot of the outrage was, that the little guy was being told, like, hey, now you can't trade this. And I think it got a lot of people thinking about crypto, Bitcoin, and DeFi, because there is no deplatforming in Bitcoin. There's no deplatforming in crypto. There's no call to make. And whether it's a clearinghouse calling or a hedge fund calling a clearinghouse, you can't make a call to the clearinghouse is the blockchain. Crypto settles atomistically in real time. And you can't call the blockchain and say, hey, risk concerns, increase margin, stop that going through. And so the decentralized nature of Bitcoin and crypto, that power really came to center stage at the same time that how so few hands control centralized finance, and a few people can tell Robinhood or all their users, now you can't actually trade this. And so that's where a lot of the outrage and confusion, but also the light was shined onto the centralized system and how few people actually run it. And the establishment makes the decisions for you. So that was really the big eye opener for me and a lot of people, the whole world, frankly, last week.
Except for the guys on CNBC, though.
Yeah, no, they were shocked and dumbfounded that I might suggest that someone may have leaned on Robinhood to shut down trading on one side, which we know actually now has been the case. The clearing organizations did lean on Robinhood, and it's unclear who leaned on the clearing organizations. And the other element that makes this particularly sort of nefarious feeling, and maybe there's a good innocent answer, but we really haven't heard it, is that I kind of understand if you say, hey, we got to shut down trading on both sides, so you can't buy, but you also can't sell.
Yes.
And then if there's a margin issue or a reserves issue, then you shut down margining. So you allow people to buy and sell without margin. So you could just shut it all down, right? So it's not just the buying and selling. You shut both, you freeze the entire stock. Or if you're not going to do that, you freeze margin, but you allow people to trade with full reserves. So if they actually have the cash on hand, then they can make the buy as opposed to borrowing. So the idea that it's the clearinghouse's fault doesn't explain to me why you shut down one side of the trade and not the other, and why you wouldn't shut down just margin but allow fully funded, full reserve trades to go. And so that's definitely, that adds to the nefarious feeling around it. The feeling that the goalpost was changed, that the playing field's not level, and once the retail investor starts to win the uphill battle, they just tilt the playing field, even more to make it steeper and harder. So all of those, whether they're optics or whatever, maybe they just have terrible PR and they don't know how to manage this crisis, but they've been through a lot of crises before, not quite this level, but there's been a lot of stuff in the press about, the commission-free trading, which really isn't free, the gamification of these platforms that encourages people to trade and invest in ways that maybe don't fully understand. So they've dealt with some headwinds in press before, but the fact that we still don't really know, and people have been digging for answers, and it's almost a week later, that's hard to understand. Yeah, and it seems like the questions aren't being asked a ton. I mean, I think Elon interviewed the founder on Clubhouse, but I'm not seeing sort of, and maybe I'm just not seeing it in my feed or wherever, of journalists running up the chain. Okay, Robinhood, if it wasn't you, then it was a clearinghouse. Who in the clearinghouse? And let's get some answers here, right? It's a very opaque system with endless plausible deniability, and it all really underscores the sort of the importance of DeFi, the permissionless nature, and that's really where it's all going. I mean, GameStop was this battle on the turf of Wall Street in the system. Robinhood's just an extension of that system. It's a horse with a better saddle. It's got fancier marketing. At the end of the day, it's beholden to the system. We saw firsthand. It's like playing a football game and American football, and one team's not allowed to score for a quarter. Hey, you can only play defense. You can liquidate your position, but you cannot offensively score and go play that game. And DeFi doesn't have that movable goalpost, and that's where it's going to go. It's less about, hey, let's go fix this system that's not transparent. And you see it with money too, right? The Fed in the U.S. it's a board, I think, of 12 governors making decisions behind a door in a closed room. We have no idea, and then they come out and say, hey, aha, we've done this. It's like the Wizard of Oz. And people are waking up. And so GameStop wasn't just about a ticker or a price. It was really this awakening of like, wait a second, this is just the system. And what alternatives do we have? And that's how we get to, and that's why we've been excited about Bitcoin and Ethereum for the better part of 8 years. And, we're just seeing more and more reasons for them and the need.
Yeah, I mean, I think I, for one, hope that this is, one of those things that will wake people up to cryptocurrency. I think the whole coronavirus, the whole printing of money is sort of one thing that's been able to wake people up a little bit. I hope this is another thing, especially for, Gen Z. But in terms of the movie that's coming out, can you give us an idea of how it's going to look? I know it's still super early days, but what kind of angle are you taking? And also, in terms of key players, how are you going to do this? Because there aren't any, actual faces behind the Reddit group. It's not like, Social Network where you had yourself, you had Mark Zuckerberg, you had Eduardo. These were all personalities. How are you going to do this?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And Ben Mesrick is super talented, maybe one of the best people in the world at sort of teasing and pulling the story out. When we met with him a couple years ago about Bitcoin, he had read in the New York Times that we had become Bitcoin billionaires. And he's like, wait a second, okay, I need to reach out to these guys and talk to them and see what they're up to. And we sat around for like an hour or two and kind of told them what we had been up to. And he's like, I think there's a story here. And we're like, are you sure? I don't know. It seems like pretty normal, like, day to day for us. And then he kind of came back and was like, hey, I think this is like actually really, really interesting. And these are the different things I want to talk about. And he's a masterful storyteller in that regard. And so he's actually already talking to the mods on the Wall Street Bets boards. He's talking to people at hedge funds and finance, and he's sort of very good at getting to sources and teasing out and pulling out the story and then building a cohesive sort of 3-act narrative that's really purpose built sort of for the movie. So there's going to be people like the Roaring Kitty YouTuber who's hilarious and actually has been talking about GameStop for like well over a year. Wow. He's like sort of built for movie and this kind of medium. And there's other characters like that along the way. So I think it's going to be incredibly colorful, and it's going to be sort of the internet, like it's going to capture the zeitgeist of this movement and the internet and all these different individuals, sort of this beehive like coming together. So I think it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I saw Ben tweeted. He was like, I'm going to put all of your tweets in the movie. It's going to be really just sort of showcasing, what all of this is really. Go for it.
The beauty part about this is that so much unfolded out in the open.
Yes.
The Wall Street Bets channel, right? Anyone can see that. Yeah. The Twitter, the area that people can't see is the decision-making of Robinhood, the calls or the inquiries into the clearinghouse or from the clearinghouse to Robinhood, the decision-making of Melvin Capital, what happened in Melvin Capital, what happened at Citadel. That side is completely private and obfuscated from the public. But the Wall Street Bets and the Twitter and Roaring Kitty, all that's out there, So that part's easy to sort of bring to the silver screen, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this happens. And if, you guys and Ben are able to sort of really put forward the lack of transparency there, I think it will play an amazing case for cryptocurrency.
And there's such a crazy intersection. I mean, Elon Musk is a big part of the story, right?
Yes, I'm so excited.
And Stonk sent it to the moon. And so there's sort of that parallel intersection with Elon. Like, why is Elon involved in the GameStop thing, or why is he talking about it? And I think, Mark Cuban has talked about it. We talked about it. There's so many. What's that?
Yeah, Portnoy.
Portnoy.
I think he just put 700 million into AMC. I just saw, by the way, before we went live.
700 million? Who put that in?
I think, or maybe I think Portnoy.
He lost 700,000 because the stock was halted. So he bought at the top and sold at the bottom. So he's upset that he lost money because Robinhood and Vlad the stock impaler decided that, hey, you can no longer
She's just calling Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah, I think that's, Vlad the stock impaler. I think that was Elon Musk's name for him when he interviewed him. But it's fitting. But yeah, because Vlad woke up, or someone woke up and said you can no longer buy this, Dave Portnoy lost almost $1 million.
Yeah, I think it's terrible.
Yep. And the thing is, the Social Network, when it came out in 2010, is really the first movie about sort of modern, the modern college experience, the modern tech experience, entrepreneurship, startups. When we were at Harvard, I think computer science might have been like the least popular major, because it was in the dot-com bubble had happened in the late 90s, early 2000s. People were still sort of reeling from that. And I think, this story sort of has the opportunity to be sort of the first modern story about like the internet and the subcultures and the subreddits and all those different, elements out there, and capturing the time. And it's about 10 years later, and it's sort of like the timing lines up. Every 10 years, there's this like new zeitgeist. And I think it has the potential of capturing so much that's going on right now with like the issues of centralization and decentralization, the movements of Bitcoin and things like that. So it's going to be incredibly colorful, maybe more so than the Social Network.
Oh, I think so. I think it's going to be far more colorful, as you put it. But I want to talk about the Social Network. So I do want to go back a bit to how we all first heard of the Winklevoss twins. It was obviously because of the movie. It was because of Facebook. So you guys were kind of seen initially as the bad guys because you guys were the jocks, and Mark was, the nerd. So we sort of felt sorry for him. But after time, that narrative obviously began to change. So I do want to hear about that moment, that iconic moment when you found out that Mark had potentially stolen your idea.
Yeah, look, it was a very convenient narrative to pit us as sort of the jocks, the establishment, the bad guys, the guys in Karate Kid who were Cobra Kai. I've actually just started watching that on Netflix, and it's pretty awesome show. Highly recommend it. But yeah, like it was a convenient like 80s narrative. Yeah. Sort of fast forward, we kind of now see Facebook as the establishment. I think history or time has a way of sort of the truth surfacing. And I think a lot of folks were like, wait a second, you guys can't be like jocks and idea guys and executors and tech guys. That's not for you. That's for the fuzzy nerd people over here. And it's like, wait a second. No, that's just not the way the world necessarily has to work. And when we first read about the Facebook, we read about it in the Harvard Crimson in February of like 2004. And we're like, this sounds like our site. This sounds like, are there more than one Mark Zuckerberg at the school? Because maybe he is a twin. Like what is it was an incredibly surreal experience, and kind of blindsided us, and really was just a huge punch like in the gut. We were just like, what just went on? And then we just basically had to figure out what the right path forward was. We went to the university president, Larry Summers at the time. There's a scene that's pretty hilarious in the Social Network. He's got his shoes up on the table. He's incredibly dismissive, scornful. All of that's true. Spot on. None of that. In fact, if anything, they downplayed it. He was incredibly unhelpful. And we were sort of confused because the university has like an ethics code and a rule of conduct. And we're like, well, gee, okay, you guys don't really care about any of this stuff. Interesting. Okay. We were sort of mistaken on that. But he did say, hey, go to the courts. That was his advice. And we did.
And you did.
That was really our only course of action there. And, it took many years, but we got to a place, and then moved on. And really the last 10 years have been all about crypto. I mean, look, Facebook is obviously grown a lot. It has its issues or there's a lot going on, but we're really focused on Bitcoin, Ether, and cryptocurrency in general. And we started Gemini, our exchange, Gemini.com, in 2014. It was sort of an idea in 2014. We launched in 2015 once we got our trust company license. And we're just basically trying to create a platform where it's super easy for you to buy, sell, and store, and now lend your crypto to earn yield, and make like a platform that's super simple. Because I think a lot of people, like once they sort of buy into Bitcoin or Ethereum, they're like, I get it, I understand the story, but how do I get it and do it in a safe way? When we first got in 2012, there wasn't a safe way. We took on a ton of risk, had to build our own cold storage system, which is chronicled in the Bitcoin Billionaires book. It's a really fun chapter. I think that really resonates with people. They often like cite that chapter. And we basically built Gemini to kind of help solve that problem and mainstream this movement.
Yeah, I want to focus on Gemini, but before we do, because Bitcoin came first, I want to do it. We're going to do it. And we're going to talk about the new earn feature. But before Gemini, you guys bought Bitcoin in Ibiza. So I do just kind of want to talk about that because it's totally random. And actually, it's really important because what's really unique with you guys is that you're at the center of two of the biggest revolutions that we've had in the last decade, right? So you had Facebook, which kind of sparked social media, and then now Bitcoin, which has been a huge revolution. So how did you stumble across Bitcoin?
Yeah, so we found love in a hopeless place.
Literally.
we were in Ibiza in the summer of 2012 on vacation. We're not looking for the next big thing. Somebody from Brooklyn actually recognized us from the Social Network, the movie, and said, hey, started talking. We started chatting. And he said, have you guys thought about virtual currency or Bitcoin? And we hadn't at the time. We're like, tell me more. So we started chatting about it. And at first it sounded a little crazy. And then we took a shot of tequila and it started to make a lot more sense. And we connected stateside and started reading up on Bitcoin. And we're really blown away by what we saw as like a money network, a monetary network. And money really is the ultimate social network when you think of it. When you think of why gold has value, it's because people are willing to accept it and they believe in it. They have faith in that instrument. And Bitcoin really has a lot of the similar properties. And we sort of said, wow, this feels like it could be the next big thing. It's either complete bullshit or very binary, or it could be incredibly enormous, a incredible network and invention. And just the risk of sort of not being a part of it, that fear was huge. We have to kind of figure this thing out. And we started talking to Bitcoiners and getting really they were so passionate, like the energy, and it felt like there's this little secret hiding in plain sight that we had stumbled upon, and we couldn't like get enough of it. So we did the crazy thing of jumping in, just into the deep end and buying a lot, buying a ton. And I'm not sure we even at the time could totally articulate it because Bitcoin's kind of a complex thing. But we felt it. We knew like this is going to be incredible. And in that buying process, we started to think about, okay, well, how do we kind of help build this industry, as opposed to also, investing is one thing, but you also want to we're builders at heart. We love building things. And so what can we build? What should we build? What do we need to build to make this thing really go mainstream?
Yeah, and obviously you went and you built Gemini. So I do want to talk about Gemini a bit, because you guys are, you do everything properly, obviously, and you've got the regulation in place. And I think you never listed XRP, is that right? Because of the lack of clarity.
That's correct.
Yeah. So with that in mind, you're obviously very much in line with everything. So what are your thoughts on regulation and sort of mass adoption and this space moving forward? Do you think regulation is going to be really necessary? And how is Gemini going to sort of work with these new developing regulations and laws?
Yeah, so our belief is that thoughtful regulation builds really healthy, vibrant, strong markets. It's also the only way to build a bridge between your money in your bank now and getting into crypto. So Gemini was not a regulated New York trust company with money transmission licenses in almost 50 states. If we didn't have an e-money license in the UK, if we didn't have a license in Singapore pending, then it would be very difficult for you to go to your bank and wire money or convert it into Bitcoin, Ether, crypto. Because we have those licenses, because we've worked with regulators to become regulated and help them shape and educate them on the regulation to build the right regulation, you can open an account with Gemini. You can wire your money to our account and you can buy Bitcoin, Ether. You can keep it with us, you can store it, but you can also withdraw it from Gemini into your wallet, into another exchange, let's say Coinbase, into a DeFi protocol like Aave. And so that is the only way we know how to sort of link up these two worlds and build that adapter bridge portal so that people can come over. People should be aware also, while we're on the topic of Robinhood and dogging on them a little bit, is that when you buy crypto there, it's actually stuck in jail. It's a walled garden. So if you buy Bitcoin at Robinhood, it's actually stuck there and you have to sell it into cash, wire the cash out, and then wire the cash back to Gemini to buy Bitcoin. The problem with that, other than the friction and the inconvenience, is that when you sell your Bitcoin exposure in Robinhood, it's a taxable event. So it's very inefficient and costly for you to actually go in and out of Bitcoin. And it really kind of destroys your ability to hodl long-term if you want to. But kind of going back to the original question, we think thoughtful regulation is the best way to get as many people into Bitcoin, crypto, Ethereum, DeFi. And so that's why we dedicated the last now 6 years of our lives to working on that and building Gemini with that.
Yeah, I mean, I was speaking to Raoul Pal about regulation, and he was sort of saying that if we want Bitcoin to be the next big thing, if we want it to be this store of value that, outperforms gold and so on, regulation is necessary for the big names to get in, like, we saw with MicroStrategy. Otherwise, it just stays as something that people use within the community, and it is what it is. But I guess, we all sort of want it really to take off, we spin it against the gold narrative.
And one day, once everybody's in, right, Gemini might look different. Could evolve. They could have more of a decentralized clearing mechanism that involves the blockchain or whatnot. So, we're a living, breathing organism, a company. Like any good company, you're always looking to disrupt yourself. You're not just placing on what's your current stack look like, or protecting your franchise business. You're looking out on the horizon, like what's the next frontier. And we may have different stacks. Right now, we're a SEX or a checks, or however you want to call it, a centralized exchange. And we could have, different stacks for different customers depending on where the market evolves.
And speaking of Gemini developing, you've obviously just launched the Earn feature. So tell us about this and how does it compare to what BlockFi have, what Celsius Network have, Crypto.com?
Yeah, so we just increased what we call the money verbs at Gemini. So buy and sell are two verbs, right? Two actions you can take, and then store, and now earn. And so you can lend your crypto and earn yield or earn interest on that. I think our rates are really competitive. But also like our trust brand and the fact that we're a New York trust company, everything we're doing is regulated. And so you sort of have that layer of trust over the offering, which really doesn't, I think, exist anywhere else. There are other places offshore that are unregulated that will offer yield, but buyer beware because there's no recourse and things like that. So we think, I mean, that's like the number one question I tend to get is people want to understand like what is the safety and security here behind it, because you buy Bitcoin or whatever, you want to hodl it. You also want to protect that value and you want to make sure that you're protecting it and it's safe in yield. And we think we've built a really great product that helps consumers get yield, but also protects them and things like that. And I think we're the only people in New York State, for example, big state, that offers it in a regulated manner. So we're really excited about it, and we're going to be rolling it out to other parts of the world as well, and adding more assets to it coming in the next couple of weeks. So
where is it available right now?
I believe we're in all 50 US states right now. So basically all of America. And we're looking at other international areas, more assets. And so it's sort of we're in like a soft launch mode. I think next week it gets opened up to everyone. The numbers are pretty staggering in terms of like the uptake. I won't disclose them right this moment, other than saying that it's been really phenomenal to watch. The other thing that we got, the other recent product launch that this brings to mind is our credit card offering, where you can basically swipe your credit card and earn crypto rewards back. People are going crazy for that. They're really excited because it's a behavior that we all do. And instead of getting silly rewards points or airline miles, you can now actually invest and save as you spend your cash, which is quickly becoming trash because of all the money spending. And it turns consumers into investors. And that's a really cool element. And it's a great way to access crypto in an easy to understand manner. Because one of the other questions that I often get asked is like, well, when do I buy? How do I time it? How much should I buy? And this takes those questions and thought out of it, where you just sort of can kind of do it on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting just to sort of see how this space is moving. And I really like the idea that, you can earn, you said you can earn, was it Bitcoin back, you said, right? You can get your cash back in Bitcoin?
Any crypto that we support. I think we have about 26 right now. And so you could choose Bitcoin, you could choose Ethereum, you could choose Litecoin, whatever token that we support.
I think that's great because I use a lot of different cards because they all do different things just slightly differently. And I don't like to get my cash back in their own token because it devalues, unfortunately, really quickly. But I guess,
right. What's an airline mile actually worth? We don't have.
Yeah, especially when you can't fly anyway.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so if this pandemic continues, then at least we get our Bitcoin or Ethereum back. But speaking of Ethereum, you guys are super bullish on ETH, which is really cool to see. So I'd love to know why. What is it? Because obviously, Bitcoin is sort of the heart and soul of this, but it's quite cool to hear that you're into ETH. So whoever wants to go for it.
Yeah, we've been long-term ETH hodlers pretty much since inception. And we were actually the first regulated exchange in the world to list Ether, I think in April of 2016. So we've been big supporters of the project for a long time. And if Bitcoin is sort of the store of value, like think of it as digital gold, it's filling that quadrant of money. or utility. Ethereum is really this like decentralized operating system where you can build apps or smart contracts or really whatever you want. And to run these apps or contracts, you need Ether. So it's sort of like the digital oil of this operating system. And it powers a lot of this stuff. And so as more and more apps get sort of built on top of Ethereum, then there's greater demand for Ether. And so we're seeing an explosion in decentralized finance right now, where people are building lending applications and exchanges or decentralized exchanges like called DEXs. And people are, basically re-architecting financial services on the Ethereum blockchain. And I think, people are naturally very bullish about the prospects, because when you think about the possibilities of operating system, they're sort of limitless, the kind of what you could build. And we have no idea. I mean, a year from now, the things that are going to be coming out, we're going to look back and say, wow, I couldn't even conceptualize that. It's this sort of Cambrian explosion of ideas and development. And so when we think of the value of Bitcoin, and we actually wrote a piece on the case for $500,000 Bitcoin. We published it in August. It's on our website, winklevosscapital.com. And we basically said, look, we think Bitcoin overtakes gold for these reasons. If you look at the market cap of gold, it's like an $8-9 trillion market cap. And so we backed into $500,000 a coin. I think Bitcoin was trading at 13,000 in August when we published. It's now at 37,000. It's making progress, but it's still like 15 times off of where we think it can be within the next decade. That's sort of the time.
Within the next decade.
Within the decade. It could be as fast as 5 years, but we're very confident that within the decade. But Ethereum is sort of, if you take the operating system of iOS and Windows and Linux, sort of is all of that potential, or cloud computing. It's all of that potential. And it's really hard to put a ceiling or a framework on creativity, in what that means. So how do you value that? Well, I can tell you that at $1,500 Ether, today it's $1,600, but the all-time high was breached, I think, a day or two ago. And that was reached 3 years ago. And the amount of work that's gone on and the development and maturity of the network in the past 3 years, you're looking at Ethereum basically at its all-time high. It feels like really undervalued where it currently is. Bitcoin is twice what its all-time, or close to twice its all-time high of 3 years ago. So we think there's a lot of value there, and loved sort of the endless possibilities and nature of it.
So I take it then you guys are quite for the whole DeFi movement, because I think although people are pro ETH, sometimes a lot of people sort of think DeFi is just a shambles. What's your take?
So we're definitely pro DeFi. We've listed dozens of DeFi tokens on Gemini. We're really very supportive. It's early days, right? And it's in the process of sort of building the building blocks or the money Legos and putting them together and re-architecting centralized finance. And there's risk, right? It's not the most user-friendly experience. There's definitely risk. Some projects will fail spectacularly, and some of them will be incredibly successful. And so it's new, and that has to be sort of the lens at which you approach it. But I think what's happening, the foundational start of it is really amazing, and it doesn't compete with Bitcoin. That's like one of the big things, and unfortunately, you see as people become maxis or maximalists, and they're like only Bitcoin or only Ethereum or only whatever token, and it doesn't have to be the case, because they're solving totally different things. And we often talk about, like, if you look at sport, right, the world's best gymnast in the world looks a lot different than the world's best bodybuilder. They're both phenomenal at what they do, but a gymnast wouldn't be, a great bodybuilder, and vice versa. They'd be really horrible at each other's sports. And so they're doing different things, and there's room for a couple of amazing projects. Another really cool one that we're bullish and investors in is Filecoin. It's creating this decentralized data storage layer. So if you think of storing your files on Dropbox, right? Well, there's a potential that Dropbox says, at some point, hey, we don't really want to store your files. Sorry, we're closing you down. And there's censorship resistant risks. And I think that they're also not built to like interact with blockchain. So if you're building a decentralized app on Ethereum that needs to store data, Filecoin's a really interesting place to store encrypted data. And the token is the Filecoin is the token or the asset of that network. That's a really cool project. It's not competing with Bitcoin. It's not helping Ethereum. In fact, it's creating synergies and things like that. So we don't prescribe to the sort of the maximalist philosophy. We like looking at projects. Are they solving like unique problems? What are the teams behind this? What's like the genesis, the origin story? And then going from there. There's probably not going to be hundreds and hundreds, but there's not going to be one or two or three. There's going to be a number of really exciting crypto projects.
I'd also say that, whether or not you believe in DeFi or it works, it actually has a chance of solving the problems that we saw last week with Robinhood, right?
Yeah.
In centralized finance, the fact that all of the power is held in so few hands. DeFi's got a shot at completely re-architecting the financial infrastructure and reimagining and rebuilding Wall Street in a decentralized, permissionless, credibly neutral manner. And I think that's a huge idea, and there's tremendous promise. So like, I have to be a cheerleader of that.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. People also sort of look at Africa as a sort of let's say an example of where this stuff could become really useful, where they don't have the financial infrastructure that we have in the West, and they sort of skip, entire revolutions. I just think with DeFi, I think it just needs more time. It needs more credibility. It needs more work. As we always say, we're still early. But I'm with you. I'm so excited to see how it completely changes things and takes the power back.
Yeah, and also like if you can't get a loan, right, from your bank,
yeah, exactly.
You can't get a bank account, can't get a loan, you can't start a business, you can't mortgage your house, maybe use that to start a business. Like so many people, the decision of your financial future, whether you're not able to prepare to create wealth for your family and build a better like situation for yourself and your family, is a decision made by a few people at a bank.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about the fact of DeFi. It's like you're interacting with a smart contract. If you deposit the collateral or whatever, you can borrow or you can lend, and smart contracts don't discriminate for any reason at all. Computer code is not biased. That's not the case with humans. That's not the case with all these gatekeepers. So I think that's really important. A lot of people kind of miss that part too, maybe, is how democratic. And if you literally have a smartphone, and an internet connection, you can all of a sudden get access to credit, you can save, life savings. You have basically a bank in your pocket, and you have the basic tools to create a better life for yourself, to grow your wealth for yourself, your family, and your future generations. And that's just like too big to overlook.
So do you guys hold any DeFi tokens, any coins like Link?
We're not on the Link train. Actually, we might have a de minimis amount, but not large. But it's a very interesting project. We support it on Gemini. The Link Marines are a very passionate group. It's always fun interacting with them on Twitter.
Yeah, for sure. So just quickly back to Bitcoin for a sec. You mentioned you think it could surpass gold. So what is your general view for Bitcoin and the space? Do you see it as, the reserve currency? Do you see it as a day-to-day payment solution, or just as a store of value?
I think store of value, definitely. Emergent, obviously it's got its work cut out for it. It's still, needs to be a multi-trillion dollar asset to sort of really have arrived in that direction. We're seeing companies put it on their balance sheet, protect against inflation with all the money printing that's happened in COVID, and even really before then. And we think that there will be some central banks and governments that actually start buying Bitcoin and putting it on their balance sheet and understand the value. They've been using gold and buying gold for many, many, many years. We think Bitcoin is just around the corner there. So really exciting. And then does it become sort of this reserve currency of the internet? Very, very possibly. That it's kind of where people store their value, and then they move in and out of Bitcoin into other things when they need to build smart contracts on Ethereum or whatever, and then move that value back into something like, Bitcoin. So we think it's super interesting, and it cannibalizes the gold. That story gets even more interesting when you look at how much gold there is in the universe. We wrote about this summer, and I think people thought we were a little crazy.
No, it's true.
But there's billions, if not trillions, of dollars of gold, notional, sitting on asteroids floating around this planet. I think Elon Musk and NASA, they've already got a mission to explore a particular asteroid. I forget what the name of the mission is. Psyche. Okay, so that ship has already left, literally, physically.
That's insane. Yeah.
It's launched, right? And so this idea of putting a probe on an asteroid and starting to potentially investigate what's actually in it and potentially mine it, it's not sci-fi. It's not so out there. It's truly, it's probably within the next 25 years. And this idea that gold is scarce, it's really just because the technology hasn't been there. It's been like an access to space problem. We've barely sort of scratched the earth. Look at oil. The U.S. is now a net exporter of oil. Not thought possible 15 years ago. And then fracking technology came about, and we're now pulling out tons of oil, and we're literally selling it to other countries. So we think the gold story is not good long term. Yeah. And that sort of further highlights the need for Bitcoin, which is a truly fixed asset, the only asset of its kind in the observable universe. More demand will not increase supply, and that's an amazing thing.
Yeah, I think I made a video maybe a few months ago about there being gold on asteroids, and I definitely got the same response. Like, people thought I was absolutely nuts.
That's just insane.
Yeah.
One thing is, I recently read an investor letter from a very blue chip Wall Street fiduciary firm that is in Bitcoin, and they talked about Bitcoin or gold mining on asteroids. So It's happening. You're just an early adopter like us. It's classic, right? When we got into Bitcoin and started talking about it, people ridicule, laugh, make fun of, and now all of a sudden you're the smartest person in the room. And it's the same thing with mining gold on asteroids. It's like that famous quote. I don't know. It's ascribed to Gandhi. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. It's the same thing for every entrepreneur, or actually, frankly, a good investor, is that you sort of look crazy. And people sort of ridicule you, but then all of a sudden your thesis proves right, and you are the smartest person in the room. You can't have consensus when you're talking about the future or the frontier or something innovative or forward thinking. You have to be alone and be willing to be alone on your thinking there. And so that's just part of, like, when people disagree or sort of have that reaction, I kind of feel like I know I'm onto something.
Yeah, I want to just quickly delve into this a little bit, because like I said, you guys were at the forefront of the two biggest revolutions. Some people might have said before you guys stumbled onto Bitcoin that the first one was just circumstantial, having been at Harvard and so on. But it's obviously not, and you guys are doing incredible stuff. What would you say, I guess, is the key to, it's a hard question, I appreciate that. So what would you say the key is to sort of entrepreneurship and, really going for something and spotting that needle in a haystack, I guess, or the diamond in a rough?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a great question, and I think that creativity is so important, and I think a lot of people get sort of pushed off their authentic selves, and they kind of lose that spark, and they sort of get pushed off of what they really think is cool, and they end up like sort of going down paths that are pretty straightforward and in the box. So I think really sort of staying true to your own creativity is really the only way to be competitive and build in that infinite game where there's just unknowns. I mean, when we started Gemini, Bitcoin was really like the only like thing out there. We couldn't have predicted a lot of what's happened, and yet we knew if we built like a cool team, a great team, brilliant people, we're just going to find cool things to do here. And so that's part of it. It's incredibly sort of stressful and hard work and very narrow. Like you have to give up things. You will give up a ton to do it. And
like what have you guys given up?
Just a lot of like time. Yeah. Like your own personal time, right? You know, sometimes you're pulling just, you're working nonstop through weekends for months.
But I think, but it doesn't feel like you're working. That's the key, right? That's why it's a good idea for us to be entrepreneurs. But if it feels like a sacrifice too much or too much time, then it's probably not the right adventure for you, because it is literally one of the hardest things you can do and take on your life. We trained for 15 years to become Olympic athletes, and that was a very difficult pursuit. Starting a company is in the same realm. There are differences, but you give up a lot of, ostensibly give up a lot of things. But it doesn't feel like that to us, and that's the key. Is it doesn't feel like we're working, but if we punched our hours, we're never not working. We never. It's not a 9 to 5. You check in, check out. Always on Twitter, always on Slack, always doing things. Whether it's 11 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock at night, 6 in the morning, depending on the day. People ask, like, do you wake up early? Well, it depends on the morning. Depends on what the mission calls for. Sometimes I'm up at 4:30 in the morning, 5 in the morning. And some mornings I'm up at 8 or 9. Some nights I'm in bed at 9:30, just totally exhausted. Some, for whatever reason, you're up till 1 or even later. So it's literally, you have to be able to take that on and adjust and smile while you're doing it and love it, and realize that you'd be miserable doing anything else. You'd be miserable working for the man. You'd be miserable trying to become partner at the investment bank or the law firm. And some people love that. They love that certainty. They're like, I want that linear path from where I am right now to where I'm going to be in 20 years. That is comforting to me. I don't want to swim with the risk of other people's money and employing a lot of people and building a company. I love that risk. It doesn't feel like risk. I sleep very well at night, even though other people might look at me and like, you're carrying the weight of the world and juggling all this stuff. So you got to find what's the right adventure for you. For us, it's building a company.
Yeah, I mean, I can actually totally relate, because I used to work mad hours as a journalist for China's global TV network, and I'm talking like 6 in the morning until midnight, no weekends. So that obviously builds up, and I hated it, and I was absolutely miserable. Whereas now, sometimes I'm working even more, definitely working on the weekends, given we're in lockdown here in the UK, and it's fun. It doesn't feel like work, because you're building your own dream. So it makes sense. And I think I saw somebody tweet something like, entrepreneurs are the only people that would sort of leave a job just to work more hours.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
But it's really, I think work is that one of those funny words that like implies like an arduous task. And I think when you're doing what you love, it tends to be more play, and you're in flow, and it doesn't feel like work. And I think that's kind of the key here. And just finding like that passion in that area where it doesn't feel like work, and you're willing to put in as much time as it takes, and probably, tons more than if you're just working at a normal job. So, and I think also figuring out like what drives you, like what is your purpose, your mission, your why. And that's a tough thing. And it sometimes takes people a long time to figure that out, if they ever do. Some people like love to sort of give back. They need to be in the Peace Corps and do that kind of service. Others want to build or create. So I think finding that is actually really important. And we often find it sort of later on, well after we've started creating a company, and then we're like, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I know why I'm here, how I got here. But you sort of felt it instinctually, but you didn't actually like write it down on a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing I'd say is it's not just about hard work, right? Because Elon Musk doesn't have more hours in the day than you or I. It's also about, like, obviously there's going to be hard work, but we don't want to celebrate that in and of itself, right? It's about building great teams. It's about creating leverage through great teams. It's about delegating, decentralizing decision-making, building a culture of innovation. So you're just not coming up with only ideas. It's leveraging through scale, through code, through technology, through all these things that allow the same people with the same amount of hours in their day to have a dramatically different input on the other side. So it is hard work. It's going to be a challenge, but also it's not just as simple as like, it's not, the pursuit isn't banging your head against the wall, right? It's working smart, working with leverage to build something really great. That's what really separates a good company from a great company.
Yeah, I think smart work is an important one. Hard work means nothing without smart work. But just a personal question for both of you. So what's it like kind of going through this jungle of life and sort of having each other, right? So from college, from dealing with Facebook, business together, partying in Ibiza together, to building all these things together. What's it like to literally have each other, because you're not tackling this on your own? Which I think is insane, really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, you have like a co-founder like built in, and so I'm left-handed, Tyler's right-handed. So we do actually.
Stop. That's so funny.
No, we're
that's amazing.
Mirror image twins, and we have different styles, but we have obviously like a shared set of values, and so we're not sitting around ratifying each other all day long. We're actually challenging each other and being thought partners. And calling bullshit or offering like constructive feedback. It's gotten more constructive as we get older, but sometimes when you're younger, you're just like, but the point being is we're teammates, and we've been teammates for a long time, whether it's in the rowing arena, athletics, in litigation, founding a company. And it's really exciting because we sort of have different points of views. And so I think it's worked really well. We're not sort of the same person. That would be really boring, and we'd probably make bad decisions because we'd both be kind of, self-ratifying each other and things like that. And I think we've created that space where we can have really healthy disagreement and build, strategy around that. So, it's been really, really great.
What are your thoughts, Tyler? How's it been having Cameron with you this whole time?
I thought that was the point of having a twin brother. You can just answer.
No, never.
So to bring it to crypto, like in terms of values, like foundationally on like layer one, we're the same, right? But as you go up the stack, we have different preferences. But what's key, the number one thing you got to pick is value alignment. What, like, your ideas of integrity, character, honesty, truth, those things you've got to get right with your partners, your employees. The next sort of layer is like abilities, horsepower, raw horsepower. Like values, abilities are hard to change, and they're kind of fully baked by the time you're an adult. Skills are the easy things to change or learn. Like we can take someone with good values, great abilities at Gemini and almost no skills, and give them the skills, teach them the skills. And in fact, it's sometimes better because experience is just another word for like bad assumptions or like poor skills or skills we want to like detrain, because this is crypto. It's a frontier. Everything's different, new. So you got to get the values alignment, and then you want that respectful discourse. You want that disagreement, because that's how great ideas are made, is the sort of like respectfully butting heads. It's not consensus of a committee. So we very much followed that in our own relationship. I might, turn on a song or something and be like, oh, that's a good song. And Karen's like, oh, I don't really like that. Like, that's great. That's
yeah,
fun. We can argue like, but why do you think that this way? Well, I think this is the problem with the guitar line, or, the lyrics, or the sound, or the tone, or whatever, the pitch. So we can kind of go back and forth, and that's just like, it's intellectual sparring. We're like intellectual jogging partners. You want to surround yourself by those people where you have that space and grace to challenge each other, and always hire people smarter than you. That's rule number one. A lot of people like, it's crazy, but on ego, they want to be like key person, narcissistic. It's just that you just want to like have A+ around you, and you want like people who are more successful, smarter, better looking, whatever, because it just levels you up.
Yeah, absolutely. What do they say? You are the sum of the 5 people we spend your most time with. But guys, just finally, what are you doing next? What's the vision for Gemini? What can we expect?
I would say one of the coolest things that we're really excited about is NFT, non-fungible tokens, and art and collectibles. So we actually bought a platform, niftygateway.com, which is now a Gemini family. And we relaunched a platform, I think, in March of 2020. And it's really been growing like a weed, and really exciting. There's some amazing artists and content on it. And these are pieces of art that are verifiable, and they live on the blockchain. And we think that's really the next frontier of like art and collectibles. And people are getting really excited. I mean, the energy again reminds us of like early Bitcoin 2012. Yeah. Like, whoa, what is this thing? And it's still like hard for a lot of people to get. Like, wait, what do you mean, like digital art? Can't I just take a screen grab of it? Like, how, what is this canvas and this medium? And the simple answer is you can go to the Louvre and take a photo of the Mona Lisa with your iPhone. Doesn't mean you own the Mona Lisa or whatever. And we think it's a really exciting frontier, and you're going to hear more and more of it. We've had drops from artists and recording artists and all kinds of things. So it's been cool.
Nice. All right. Well, yeah, go on. Let's hear Tyler.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I'm reading through the comments.
I haven't read them yet. Oh, no.
It's very colorful. A lot of interaction.
How is it?
But should we take like a rapid fire couple questions?
Yeah, let's definitely do that. Let's definitely do it. Let me have a look through. Guys, if you have any questions you want to ask, then put them in now, because there are like hundreds of questions we've got to go through.
It would be easier if people just, even if they had put a question up top, just put it in right now so we can see it and not have to scroll.
All right, let's have a look. They're coming through. So can we ask Layah a question? No, ask them a question. Come on, guys. They're coming through. Would you like? Okay. Oh gosh, here we go. Hang on. Let me get that back.
Okay. Will you offer a debit card? Yes, looking into it.
Okay, that's great. Oh, this is going so fast. Bear with me.
Fishing with me on Lake Huron. Yeah, maybe. That sounds kind of fun. Old sailor trader.
Here we go. Thoughts on Ada Cardano?
Haven't looked at it close enough yet.
Okay. Let's get some more. They're moving really quite fast. It's hard to get them up. Let's have a look. We've already answered that one. Here we go. When do you plan on adding more projects to Gemini?
Soon. We're actually looking at more token listings right now.
Okay, let's have a look. There's more here. Will you branch to sport NFTs?
Yes, and I think we've actually already done athlete and brand NFTs. So that's actually already happened, but definitely. I mean, when I think of like NFTs, I think of digital art and collectibles. So everything that's happening in the trading cards market, like the offline meet space, like the PSA 10, Jordan rookies and stuff, we're looking at bringing that onto the blockchain. So definitely do more sports stuff and collabs with artists and athletes for sure.
Will you ever retire?
No, because we're not working. I retired when I started Gemini. Not. No, I think what would we do with ourselves? It's so exciting. That's like saying, will I ever get off Twitter? I mean, all my friends, my internet friends, I won't have them anymore. That's hard to imagine that future.
What's Tyler and Cameron's favorite book?
So I'll tell you two books that I think are incredible for any entrepreneur. Recently read No Rules Rules. It's the Netflix book by Reed Hastings and I think Erica Meyer, but you can Google that if I got that wrong. So good. Talks about their culture, all the insights. I really liked it. I found myself nodding a lot, like, hey, this makes a lot of sense. Thank you for putting words to that. And also, every entrepreneur should read 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, sort of the art of a startup. It's a short little book. There's so many pearls of wisdom in there. Building a company and startups, even angel investing, is very counterintuitive. And Peter lays this out perfectly. So I would definitely, those are must reads for sure.
Working as influential entrepreneurs, what is your view on this modern PC work culture? That's a cool one.
Modern
PC work culture. I guess he means everybody.
Personal computer.
We use personal computers every day.
All right, let's look what else we've got here. Have you considered integrating with tradingview.com for Gemini? That'll be cool.
That's an interesting question because we actually have. And I think we've had an integration with TradingView for almost a year. So you can link your TradingView account with Gemini and trade all the cryptos that we offer.
What are your thoughts on privacy? I guess they mean privacy coins.
We list Zcash and we turned on shielded addresses, I think, this fall. And we believe there's like a real need for privacy, commercial privacy in finance and transactions. And I think we were the first like regulated exchange in the world to list Zcash, and maybe still the only one. The way we did that is we really engaged with regulators and work with them to sort of demystify a lot of this. After all, regulators are comfortable with cash, right? And so Zcash is very much takes sort of the properties of analog real world meat space cash to the blockchain, and a lot of education, but we got it done and we got them comfortable, and we're really excited to support the project, and we think it's a really, really good one.
This is a great question. Does spirituality play any role in your lives and business making decisions?
Like horoscopes or something?
No, I guess more. Well, I'm going to guess they mean more.
Is a horoscope. You know, there's some spirituality there. I think, yeah. Look, I think when you think of like spirituality and like following the charm of the universe and like letting nature sort of author like a path, so to speak, that's like very much in line with entrepreneurship and building a company, right? You cannot be rigid. And you cannot cling to things that are no longer relevant. A lot of time, we go down paths and we say, oh, wait a second, that's no longer makes sense or whatever. And you pull back and you follow sort of that serendipity in many ways. That's how we found Bitcoin, serendipity. We were just sort of open, and we have this value at Gemini called beginner's mind, where we approach things with the mind of a beginner. We don't bring assumptions from, past experience that can cloud our decision making. Because a lot of people saw Bitcoin, but they didn't invest. They did the opposite. They either went the other way or they ridiculed it. And a lot of those folks have come around since then. But that is a really important value in how we think about it, and it is very much, I think, in like the spirituality domain. I think it's a concept that you find in meditation and self-improvement a lot. And so I think very much spirituality is part of what you're doing. You have like this higher calling, this mission. Otherwise, just go work for the man. Go do, another job, right?
I think Joel loved your answer. He says thank you. And what about Doge? When is that available?
Can't disclose, but it's a really interesting project.
Vote with the audience. Just if you want to see Doge on Gemini, put a +1.
Oh, that would be cool. Let's
Yeah,
do that.
Minus one if you think we shouldn't.
Put a minus. No, still put a +1. With all your success, what do you consider as your greatest achievement?
Gosh, I think the group of people we've assembled at Gemini, flattered and honored that these folks took a risk on us, took a leap of faith on us, and ultimately trust us to lead them to the moon. So that is definitely one of my top, if not the top, professional, maybe even personal accomplishments. Or it's definitely, let's put it in the professional bucket.
Yeah, I have to echo that one. It's such a privilege and honor to work with our team. And a lot of them, they've taken a risk on our vision and both crypto, but also our vision and leadership. And it's really kind of such a pleasure to work with our team. And I think that was super amazing. Also rowing in the Olympics was definitely a super amazing highlight to represent our country and really be part of the Olympic movement, which is really much more than just sport. It's really a peace movement. And that was a really exciting journey. So I'd say those two are high up there.
Bit of a cheeky question. Are you guys in touch with anybody from Facebook?
So we're in contact with Dustin Moskovitz. We actually ran into him. We went to Burning Man in 2013 and 2014. And I think it was 2013. We actually randomly, serendipitously met and sort of kept in touch. So I think he's the only guy we are in touch with from Facebook. I have a feeling that if we ran into Severin, we would be friends, given that we went through sort of similar things a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we've met any of the other founding team, actually, other than Mark, of course.
Have you guys ever tried out Nano? What do you think of it?
Haven't tried it out, I don't think. How about you, Cameron?
A Nano?
Nano, it's a crypto. It's quite an interesting one.
No, I'll have to check it out.
All right, they've got a great community. They're really happy that you talked about that. Any thoughts on Bitcoin Cash?
I think so. Bitcoin Cash is a fork of Bitcoin. Came about through a disagreement in transaction speed and throughput. Look, I think it's great that if other people want to build other communities and projects, that's awesome. I think it's healthier to sort of not have a lot of disagreement, just fork it and go your own way. Haven't stayed that close to the project, but I think, look, it's a project out there. We support it on Gemini for listing and trading. So if you want to buy some, we offer it.
Will Gemini have their own token like Binance?
Not anytime soon. We have a stable coin. So we have, I don't know the Binance token, but but we have a stable coin called the Gemini dollar. It's a 1-to-1 peg with the dollar. I'm also looking at a question that says, Flexa, how easy is the relationship been? Flexa team is fantastic. They feel like the Gemini team. There's so much value alignment. They literally fit in like a glove in Gemini, and we've had an incredible relationship with them. And we look forward to doing some great stuff, continued stuff in the future, for sure.
All right. I think just one last question. Gemini Earn Live.
Meaning like, is it live, the product?
I think that's what they're asking. Yeah.
Yeah. So we offer, it's open to a select group of customers as we sort of test and roll it out. We just want to make sure everything's, it's a new product, but it should be open for everyone within a week or so. And we'll message on Twitter, follow, at Gemini on Twitter, or our blog, or myself at Cameron or at Tyler, if you want to stay up to date. But it'll be out very, very soon. And thanks for asking.
Gemini is also available in Portugal. Someone just asked, and also Netherlands. and pretty much I think everywhere in the European economic area or Europe. So check it out.
All right, guys, thank you so much for coming on. And I'm sure the audience is super pleased about the AMA. Great idea. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been so interesting to learn more about you and understand, what's coming up with Gemini next.
Thanks for having us. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Thank you, audience, for being lively and having the great questions. And we look forward to coming on again in the future, not too long from now.
Absolutely. Speak soon. Bye.
All right. See ya.